You all kind of guessed who I'm going to talk about, and since this is already its own portion, because again, this is also its own separate video here on YouTube, on my channel, because I don't know how many people really would care to actually listen to any of my podcasts, just from start to finish. So let's just get into it. Mike Howe of Metal Church, who sadly had passed away this past Monday at the age of 55. This right here was fucking shocking to me. This was absolutely shocking. I know everyone. The thing is with 55, normally you kind of almost expect some. It's not. It's kind of an age to where you might expect somebody to die at. Because again, especially within the realms of rock and rollers, and especially even wrestlers, for example, 55 tends to be almost a kind of like, I guess you can say, kind of a deadly age because of given the substance abuse of a lot of rock stars and wrestlers. Sometimes some wrestler or rocker, or just any of them, musicians in general, that are at least from the 1980s or the 90s or whatnot. By the time they hit their 50s, it's time begins to stand still. Time is never everyone's almost on borrowed time, it seems like. But Mike Howe wasn't like a lot of them. Mike Howe was as healthy as anyone else. He was a fucking healthy human being. My God, was he active. I mean, look at for a guy who was in his 50s. You watched those footage of him either on stage with Metal Church, especially during his return to the band back in 2015, being back as a full-time member of Metal Church. My God, just look at the way he moved on stage and the way he also reacted and acted towards his audience and the fans, everything. And of course, hearing about how he kept a very healthy lifestyle. He was growing his own fruits and vegetables. He was a healthy fucking guy for a guy in his 50s. And he was in great shape. And so how the hell does somebody who was living that healthy just drop dead at 55 years old? How the fuck does that happen? And so, for the past couple of, at least for the rest of the week here, until this morning, I'll get to that, there was a lot of questions, there was a lot of theories on possibilities on how he would have died, especially for somebody who was this healthy, and it just comes out so unexpectedly. And so there was a lot of theories, especially on the Heart of Metal forum. I don't really sign into there anymore, but I do frequently just pop in and just read a lot of the comments and a lot of the pages that at least, or just overall threads that at least are interesting to me. And this one was, so I was reading a lot of the comments from some of the folks there. A lot of them was, apparently they were coming up with theories on the possibility that he could have committed suicide. Fuck. I didn't really want to believe that. I didn't want to believe that at all, especially how he fucking interacted with his audience, especially with after the show was in. I know one of my friends, fucking Heavy Metal Gamer, who had seen Metal Church, and even after the show had even ended up speaking to a lot of the members, hung out with a bit of them, especially Mike Howe, and saying that he was a nice fucking guy. He came off fucking nice at everything. He was just a freaking just an easygoing guy. Everyone that had ever met him, he was an easygoing guy. There was never any sort of thought or speculation, just any sort of vibe that anyone got that there's any sort of possibility that there might be something a little bit, just anything that might come off as depression. Nothing. He never gave off that sort of feeling, or just that overall, just that aura. He never gave that off. He was just a very nice guy and a very approachable guy too, especially in interviews. He was a freaking approachable guy, just down to earth. And so there was never any sort of possibilities that he could very well be going through any sort of dark or deep, just periods, just behind the scenes. Nobody knew. Nobody would have suspected it. And so that's why it was almost kind of difficult for me to really kind of believe that he would commit suicide. I was just thinking there's gotta be other sort of possibilities, like he must have either had a heart attack at just some unsuspecting heart attack. He must have could have tripped and fell and hit his head and for head trauma. Anything, any sort of accident, that would or even accidentally just falling. Those were all of my sort of more possible possibilities. Like, it can't be suicide. It really can't. There's gotta be something else for why Mike Howe would have just unexpectedly just die at the age of 55, especially how healthy he was and how well he can move for his age, and how great a shape he was in. I guess, really, the only thing that wasn't kept in shape was his mind, I guess. Oh my god. Because early this morning, the news breaks that the cops were called in to an unexpected death at a home in Eureka, California, and when they arrived, there was no evidence of any drugs or alcohol or any other paraphernalia, meaning like knives or any sort of sharp objects or anything that would be seen as suspicious. No. The only thing they were called in was a death by hanging. Mike Howe basically committed suicide by hanging himself. And I guess those theories that I didn't want to believe on the Heart of Metal forum were obviously ended up being true. Oh my god. I was really at a loss for words. I'm really at a loss for words for that. But then, of course, the band ends up posting a message a bit ago. Let me kind of find this message real quick so I can read it. Because they ended up posting two messages. Because they took down one message and then had to repost another one that would somewhat clarify or just it's clear the air on what they meant originally. But let me find these posts here. So here's the first post. Earlier today, the surviving members of Metal Church issued the following statement in response to the TMZ report. Yeah, because TMZ reported this. They report anything that is within music, wrestling, or sports, entertainment, whatever. So here it is. This is from of course, the members of Metal Church that posted this on either Twitter or Facebook. I suppose both formats, both social media platforms. If you knew Mike Howe, then you knew he was a truly good human being who loved his friends, his family, and his many fans around the world. He would always go the extra mile to make someone feel good, and he would always give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. We ask that you remember Mike that way, and for the amazing metal music he created. As to what really happened, he was victimized by a failing healthcare system and subsequently poisoned by the venom of Big Pharma. They wrote using a term which refers collectively to the global pharmaceutical industry. In short, and in essence, he fell prey to the real fake healer. Enough said. #truth. Godspeed, Mike Howe. We love you. So apparently they had to take that down because some people were thinking we're trying to tie that to sort of any sort of real harsh, almost political, or even anything that might be related to COVID-19. That did Mike Howe die because he wasn't receiving the right sort of treatment for maybe possibly getting COVID-19? I don't know. That's what some of those folks were taking it, and obviously Metal Church had to take down that original post because of that's not what they meant, really. They didn't mean that he was obviously had COVID-19 or whatnot, or they're trying to tie this to some sort of political conspiracy theory. Either way, they had to, of course, post a second post that would at least clear the air on their original post. So this was it here. Concerning our recently deleted post addressing the news that Mike's passing was a suicide, we wanted to dispel any misconception that might have risen from certain media reports. In our efforts to do that, our attempts at honesty created a narrative that fell outside our purest of intentions. We were in no way, shape, or form referring to anything in relation to vaccinations, COVID, or politics. We were saying our brother was hurting, and while he was seeking medical care for it, the treatments he was utilizing did not protect him. Otherwise, he would still be with us today. So, there you go. That was, at least that's the first portion. So, that's, again, I'm only reading that first portion because it really right there kind of at least clears the air. So, that's why I was kind of making this somewhat vague statement that I guess that the only thing that was not in shape was his mind. So obviously it has to be a similar situation to either guys like Chris Cornell, maybe Chester Bennington, who really, in hindsight, were probably very much approachable guys and weren't really seen as that sort of depressed. I mean, yeah, Chris Cornell and maybe even Chester Bennington may have wrote some kind of dark and somewhat very depressing kind of lyrics, but as far as human beings, they probably came off real nice individuals, very approachable, and were very down to earth. But again, what you see in up close may not be what you might be seeing behind what that person is. Again, you're only seeing what it is. It's almost like a very similar case with Chris Benoit, the wrestler. And I'm not going to try and compare and say that anything terrible happened with the family, but it's just more so how Chris Benoit was approachable to his fans. How fans could easily was able to approach him, especially on some of his final days before he did what he did. He apparently, again, Chris Benoit had showed up for just a college interview or radio interview. And again, the guy who ran it was a big fan of the wrestler Chris Benoit, and when he met him, he was a very nice guy, apparently. He was very easy approachable and he was very easy to talk to and was very thoughtful. Had a lot of good things to say. But again, that's what a lot of the folks saw. They didn't really see what was going on behind the scenes. Even apparently a cop once fucking pulled over Chris Benoit, and apparently again the cop apparently said that he was a very nice guy. He was he was very respectable. So that's one story that I heard too. So again, what the folks were seeing, I guess, of Mike Howe is almost a similar situation. He wasn't coming off as the person that maybe some were used to maybe seeing or kind of knew. It seemed like everything was kept under wraps. So if Mike Howe really was going through some sort of mental depression and was receiving sort of medication for his mental health, I guess in the sort of what they mean or vaguely meaning by basically being victimized by by Big Pharma, basically. I guess that means that a lot of the medicine, or the medicine that he was receiving that was coping with his mental health was not cutting it, and they were obviously they weren't doing enough to somewhat help him more. I guess prescribing even more treatments, nothing. So I guess that's what they probably meant by him falling victim, basically, to a failing healthcare system that is obviously being ran by Big Pharma. So that's probably what they meant. So he really was going through some sort of really tough times. Of course, COVID-19 fucking a lot of everything up. And yeah, I'm going to at least kind of, not that he was vaccinated, but just that how it fucked a lot of everyone's mindset up, because of you weren't going out to doing all your normal activities. You basically were all being coped up inside because of everyone was being made afraid of what was going on outside, that if you went outside you would easily catch and you may even die. So there was a lot of fear mongering going along too during that period. And so with just not conducting your normal activities, it really seemed to really fucked with a lot of the mindset, a lot of folks and everyone who might be dealing, who were dealing with some sort of mental health or mental issues. It really probably didn't help them either, and that I can obviously really think, or just have my theories that a lot of that could have really made could have ended up adding to the issues from Mike Howe. So it really, all in the end, it sucks. So it would have been great if he was still able to deal, or get the help that he probably would have needed. If the fucking healthcare system was still able to really help those who really needed it, instead of the rich fucking scumbags, then obviously guys like Mike Howe would still be here. So that's probably what Metal Church means, and that's what I'm getting from, and that's what I'm understanding. And either way, though, no matter how you slice it, it still is a very dark and sad situation. And it ended up happening to probably to the wrong person. Mike Howe obviously didn't need he should have gotten the right sort of at least the right care, it seemed like, and I agree with that. Obviously, a lot of it, again, there was not really any sort of, again, I was trying to look into if there was any sort of past health issues, again, with Mike Howe, but I really couldn't. That's why it came so unexpectedly, and obviously, the darkest of theories ended up coming true for how he died. And again, I really don't know what else to add. Again, so my deepest condolences goes out to, of course, the friends of Mike Howe, to, of course, the family of Mike Howe, and, of course, to Metal Church. So all of my deepest condolences go out to them, and I hope you definitely give your deepest condolences to Mike Howe in this very hard and struggling time period. It sucks. Because again, I really, really heavily got into Metal Church by the time Mike Howe came in. I mean, I was definitely into them. I owned the first two albums with David Wayne. Yeah, basically, Mike Howe is now the second member or second singer of Metal Church to basically pass away, because the first one was David Wayne. But I really got into Metal Church with David Wayne, because again, I bought the first two albums, being First Album and The Dark, and I played those albums to death. But then I really ended up really checking out some of the later albums, with Mike Howe, and then of course Ronnie Monroe, and I've come to enjoy all of the albums that Metal Church had put out. But since Mike Howe was the recently active singer in Metal Church, again coming back in the band almost 5 or 6 years ago, it was like, goddamn. And again, it's great that they were able to still release about 2 full-length albums, and of course 1 compilation album, which was titled From the Vaults, which basically was a compilation of at least some unreleased stuff and some newer recordings and some live stuff. You know, it was basically a very cool compilation. So while it was still great they were able to release some new material with Mike Howe on vocals, still it would have been great if they still kept going, because of obviously they were just getting started. It just seemed like they weren't done. So this was one of the most unexpected and just absolutely hard to just... It's a hard pill to swallow, basically, and it's a hard pill to swallow, the whole thing. And I just feel bad. I feel bad for a lot of them, and for a fan, it basically, the whole journey of Mike Howe with Metal Church just ends here. So I basically also, besides the fact that I think all of you should definitely give your deepest condolences to, of course, to the friends and family, and of course to the band Metal Church, you should also, out of honor, out of just respect, I think you definitely should at least revisit whatever Metal Church albums you have in your collection that at least has Mike Howe on vocals, or even fucking listen to even the stuff he did with Heretic, the Breaking Point album, since that was the only album he did with Heretic. So you should put those albums on, and you should definitely spin all of those out of honor to Mike Howe. That's all I'm saying.